Joining us now as we continue to talk more about ads in this campaign. We played the great Democrats.com ad earlier. We'll be talking about a little bit about the Jack Conway ad right now. And then later, the best ad run in Nevada. Now, Univision has decided not to run it, but still running in Nevada, an ad that tells Latino voters, just don't vote. Republicans, we can't help you, but don't vote for those Democrats. Stay home on Election Day. Don't participate in the American political process. Joining us now from the Faster Times, the online newspaper, the Faster Times, you can find it at thefastertimes.com, is T.R. Donahue. T.R., welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Ben.
You have a great headline to your story, Rand Paul, the Aqua Buddha ad, and why Dems suck at politics, which is a good example right there about why the Faster Times is not the New York Times, who were probably unwilling to use the word suck in a headline, which I think has always been a fair criticism of the New York Times. And again, Faster Times, for those of you who don't know, just self-described as an independent collection of journalists and writers looking to create a new model for the newspaper, and I suspect also in the process who think that it's very difficult to sort of get at the truth sometimes when you're caught in sort of a groupthink of mainstream media. But I'm making that part up. Do you guys think that or not?
Yeah, I think you're pretty much on point there, Ben.
All right. So first, let's play the Jack Conway ad. We've played it before.
Sure.
This is the ad that Jack Conway has run in Kentucky. He, of course, running against Rand Paul, the Tea Party ophthalmologist, looking to take over crazy Jim Bunning's seat in Kentucky. And this is the ad that Jack Conway ran, I guess he started running at the end of last week against Rand Paul. Here's the ad.
I'm Jack Conway. I approve this message.
Why was Rand Paul a member of a secret society that called the Holy Bible a hoax that was banned for mocking Christianity and Christ? Why did Rand Paul once tie a woman up, tell her to bow down before a false idol, and say his god was Aqua Buddha? Why does Rand Paul now want to end all federal faith-based initiatives and even end the deduction for religious charities? Why are there so many questions about Rand Paul?
I'm Jack Conway. I approve this message.
Why?
All right, so there you go. TR, I saw your headline, and I didn't know whether you were going to criticize the Democratic reaction to the ad or the ad itself. I want to ask you about both. But what has been the Democratic reaction, by and large, on up and down to the Jack Conway ad?
Well, as of yesterday, Democrats were sort of tripping over each other to condemn Jack Conway, criticizing the ad. Jonathan Chait at the New Republic called it illiberal. Claire McCaskill, who seems to always be sort of a front runner in these kinds of issues, criticized the ad. I did notice today there does seem to be, not from Democratic establishment so much, but more grassroots kind of swing back to saying, people taking the position I did, which is, what's the problem here? And also, can we pick a better time than 2 weeks before the election in a really close Senate race to argue about this or to throw...
To be fair, TR, you're not going to argue about the ad on November 9th. It's really it's a bit of a yeah. So, but I hear you. I mean, we talked about it. Cenk and I did yesterday on the show, and Cenk, surprisingly, who's frequently more eager to get into a tussle than I, and I think than eager as most liberals, most progressives. But he thought the ad was over the top, and my objection to the ad was not its over-the-top nature. I like, and a point you make in the piece, essentially, that finally we got a guy who, I'll turn the phrase around a little bit, a guy who brings a gun to a gunfight, which is sort of undemocratic in many ways, little democratic. But I objected to the ad because I think it's a bad ad, because I think it seems ludicrous. But that's another point. Let's talk about the psychology of Democrats, sort of, again, as you pointed out, tripping over themselves to condemn another Democrat. To what end? What's the hope? What is Claire McCaskill hoping to accomplish there? And also John Yarmuth, who's running for a House seat or looking to, also in Kentucky.
And I think it's understandable to an extent if you're running for a House seat in Kentucky. I can almost see trying to position yourself if you're concerned about some backlash. What I really don't understand are people like Claire McCaskill who are completely, she's not up for election till, let's see, another 4 years or so. She has no relation to this. There's nothing. It has nothing to do with her. But I guess it's a chance to get in front of a microphone, get her face on TV, and to be known as that, principled Democrat.
Right, a sort of moderate Democrat who doesn't. Yeah, it's weird because you know the equivalent of this ad. And by the way, as you point out in the piece, the ad largely true, or at least it's a version of the truth, which is about as far as you're going to get in a political ad.
It is largely true. Factcheck.org, that's the independent organization. They looked at it, said it's largely true. Actually, their biggest criticism was the point that it makes about repealing tax exemption for religious organizations. And that's really sort of because Paul supports a fair tax, and a fair tax implies that we would revoke all tax exemptions, and he's never really actually spoken out on the issue. So while maybe it's not 100% accurate, it also isn't a point that Paul has ever taken any time to rebut.
Nobody's objecting to the faith-based initiatives part of the ad because they're still talking about the fact that the guy kidnapped someone. I mean, I suspect that anything you say after that is largely ignored in the ad. And my objection, and again, I don't know that you and I want to get into a discussion about the efficacy or the tone of the ad, but yeah, it's a version of the truth, but it seems over the top. And again, I guess we are going to talk about the efficacy of it because my objection was that this ad seems stupid because we know he didn't kidnap someone, and obviously it seems like a college prank, and obviously Cenk would argue it's the kind of thing Republicans do. I guess you would say that's the kind of thing Republicans do, but it's effective, so we have to start doing it too.
Yeah, I just don't really see any harm if you're Jack Conway and you've been trailing all along to come out and throw a punch, or as you said, bring a gun to a gunfight. I know the woman who was sort of the victim of this pseudo kidnapping has come out today. I hear, and I said, okay, yeah, it's true, but it wasn't that sinister. And I guess different from you, don't really hear it as being all that sinister or making him out to be a kidnapper. I think if I'm running for Senate in Kentucky, where religion matters, sort of the buckle of the Bible Belt down there, I got no problem sort of undermining my opponent's credibility on religious grounds. It's Kentucky, after all.
One of the great points you make in your piece is that you mentioned that John Chait from the New Republic calls it the ugliest, most illiberal political ad of the year, and then you point out that this is an odd thing to say when you're talking about Rand Paul, who has at the very least been hostile to the Civil Rights Act, and again, he had he spent a lot of the first couple months after he won the nomination trying to undo the damage he did by talking about that the Civil Rights Act, he didn't support it, but also Medicare, Social Security, worker safety in a state with a bunch of minors. That seems far more illiberal than Jack Conway running a 30-second ad that some people object to.
Right. What are we getting all worked up about here? Well, I mean, what's really worth getting worked up about? As you said, a 30-second ad? Or let's talk about Rand Paul and what Rand Paul would look like as a United States Senator and what that would mean potentially for, the sort of the cornerstones of American liberalism, and I also think sort of modern American society when you're talking about Social Security and Medicare. And those are that's the real extreme. Rand Paul's positions are extreme. And so if you have to make an ad that's a little quirky, a little out there, and I think I used the word audacious, I'd stand by that, to get across. Go ahead.
What is it, last question for you, what is it, I think I asked it, but I want to talk about it, I guess, a little bit more. That what is it about the psychology of Democrats that make us sort of constantly assert any sense of fairness, like show how fair we are, even as the person we're trying to convince that we're fair is literally standing over us with a boot kicking our teeth in? And they're like, no, don't worry, I see what you're saying, and I would never accuse you of kicking my teeth in.
I respect your position.
I respect your position. And then and Claire McCaskill would run up and go, I realize he's getting his teeth kicked in, but he did say something that might have been objectionable, and that's why he's getting his teeth kicked in.
It is this overarching sense of wanting to come across as fair, and I wish I did understand the psychology of it, because then maybe I could do something more about it than just write 600 words on a website. I really wish I understood it, but it happens time and time and time again, and I think you see it even play out, and I just touched on this briefly on my post, but you see this play out in the way things have operated in the United States Senate over the last couple of years, where there just seems to be this real hesitancy to just go for the jugular when the opportunity presents itself. They really want to be this overarching sense of fairness in terms of even just changing the rules. Senator Michael Bennet, one of my senators out here, has legislation proposed right now to reform the filibuster and to do away with anonymous holds. He's got 70 senators on board. Through the rules process, they could come in, they could do a simple majority vote if they wanted to bring Joe Biden in to break any Republican opposition to this, and they could take it on. But they don't want to do that because that wouldn't be fair.
And the notion of that is, if the Republicans had 60 votes and yet the Democrats were able to sort of always get Susan Collins or Olympia Snowe to sort of maintain a filibuster and thwart the ideas of the president, even though there were 60 votes, there would be no filibuster. They would have already done away with it.
Certainly. It's amazing what with 59 and 1.60 votes, what little we actually got, that feels like we got done.
I know, and our argument is always going to be, the Democrats' argument is always going to be, well, if we had 63 votes, we could really sort of, if we had nearly 2/3 of the Senate, I think we could probably get about half of our things done. All right, T.R. Donahue, thanks for the information.
Thanks
for talking to us again. It's thefastertimes.com, which is a really interesting website. You should check it out.